Hey everybody, this is Mark, and it's been a while since I've made any videos, but I wanted to take a look at Zweihander today. I have done a review on Dice Monkey of the digital version of Zweihander before, but this is the big, thick, two-handed physical copy of Zweihander. So we're going to go ahead and flip through it. I'm not doing a full review of the book here in this video because not only do I have the review of the digital version, I'm going to be doing a review of the physical version as well on the site, but this is sort of just a look through, and the review of the physical copy is going to look at some of the things that I missed in my review of the digital copy, and then also sort of look at the difference between the two. Also, I'm going to talk a bit about how I always like physical copies of games, because it's just easier to look through if you need them in the middle of the game. So I'm going to talk about that a bit, how easy it is to look through this in comparison to the digital copy. It's now available, and I know that on Amazon it's going for pretty inexpensively from what I've seen. I think it was around $40 or so. So it's definitely worth checking out. It won the gold for best game at the Ennies in 2018. So just last year was the big game. Best game and product of the year. It is a massive book. It's a good book. If I ever run a game set in the Middle Ages, I will definitely be using this. So let's go ahead and dive into what's in this just massive tome. So, this is Zweihander, the Grimoire Perilous RPG. One thing you'll note, I mentioned this in the review that I did before, the art in it is gorgeous. It's one artist, now I'm not seeing it. Yeah, interior illustrator, Dejan Mandik. It's fantastic stuff all throughout. I love it. So the table of contents is pretty extensive. It goes multiple pages. So it's extensive, which is nice because that means that so we're still going. I think that's it, yeah. It means you don't have to go back to the index to find things. Right at the beginning of the book, you can find most things you need. It's just if you need to get even more specific, that's when you'd actually start going into the index. There's a nice designer's note. There's some good fiction right at the beginning. The introduction is pretty straightforward. It's a few pages. They have a nice section on gender neutrality, how they keep things everything gender neutral. The how to play is the actual full mechanical rules of the game, and how to play is only 10 pages. So the full rules, I mean, of course there's all the rules for combat and stuff like that, but your basic mechanics is only 10 pages. That's the only stuff you have to know to roughly memorize to be able to play the game. So it's pretty straightforward. It's a percentile system, which I've always liked because ever since playing Inquisitor back in the day, back in high school, I really like with percentile systems how you can get really, really technical with exactly who's the best at stuff. So you know that somebody who has a 60 is better than the person who has a 59 in something. It's minor, but I like that you sort of can judge everybody's capability. Every single chapter has a large, full-size picture at the beginning. So this is the character creation chapter. Character creation is pretty straightforward. There's a bunch of really cool stuff in it. No races have a single racial trait. Instead, you either randomly roll or determine what your racial trait is that gives you advantages and stuff like that. So not every dwarf is able to see in the dark. If your dwarf spent their entire life above ground, you're not going to be able to see in the dark, so you wouldn't give them that trait. But the game is also humanocentric, so you can just as easily play an entire game where you say, we're only playing humans. I am a big fan of the 100 Years War era, and so if I'm going to be running a 100 Years War campaign, I'm probably actually going to run this because I would want that to be as deadly as possible with terrible diseases and make it really easy for you to die. So I would probably run Zweihander for that and just remove some of the firearms. Just have, those be available if we were playing later on in the war. So they have elves, dwarves, gnomes, halflings, ogres. and then you get into your professions. So the nice thing is with this character creation chapter, you're going to go through and you're going to go through this section once. You're not going to have to constantly refer back to the character creation. Once it's done, it's not like it's not something you're going to have to regularly go back to. There's a bunch of different like major I don't think they call them classes, but archetypes. They have archetypes, and then underneath those there's professions. So you have academic, commoner, knave, ranger, socialite, and warrior. And then you're going to get a profession in there. The entire thing with character creation is that it is random. You can do it random. You can also choose if you want to allow if you want to be nice to your players. You can allow them to actually choose. But Bridget ended up rolling up a character completely randomly. It ended up being a gnome who was a coachman and had some terrible fear of something. I can't remember what. But it was pretty cool because she actually sort of went through and I was able to see everything that she was her character was, and you were able to come up with a pretty solid character that made sense. It didn't seem like you were rolling on a random table. I think once you ended up with a full party with a bunch of characters who had completely random professions, it might be a little bit tricky. So one thing you could do too is just have everybody have to choose from the same archetype. But there's like 10 to 12, about 10 to 12 professions inside of each archetype. So you could pretty easily have everybody the same archetype, just choose different professions inside of those. So more character creation stuff. One thing I love about character creation, and I think I referenced this in the review, is the dooming. Every single person, after you determine which season they were born in, you randomly roll on the table, and even if you are going to be doing where everybody chooses specific stuff for your characters, I still would encourage everybody to randomly determine their doom, because, choose what your doom is. And it has something about your character's future in there. So the dooming of summer, one is mercy shall be your downfall, or the unlit path is the most dangerous, and it's up to the game master then to figure out exactly what that means. Or maybe not figure out what it means, and when a character just happens to die and mercy is in some way involved in that death, then it seems even more happenstance and amazing. So that is your basic character creation. You can figure out random distinguishing marks, and there's tables to determine how much your character weighs, how tall they are, stuff like that. Let's see, characters' upbringing, figuring out their drawbacks that they have, like being debt-ridden or having a nemesis of some sort. That's all pretty cool. Also, there's, for your alignment, there's chaos and order. There's not good and evil. It just depends on how you lean. So, if your character leans more towards order, like on this D100 table, they have heroism, but then the chaos version would be martyrdom. So your character has to sort of like balance between heroism and martyrdom and stuff like that. Professions. So we've got a big section on professions. It is this thick. The nice thing is you don't have to read it all. It only matters when you're choosing professions. So you're not going to be spending hours and hours and hours reading every single entry. It only matters for your own character. So you've got professions that do different things. So, for example, the very first one is adherent. They belong to ancient orders who embrace. I'm going to use I'm going to skip that word. Asceticism? I don't know. I know what the word means, but I have only ever read it. So basically, they take lives of meditation and prayer. So every single character gets different skill ranks. Anytime as you advance, you'll choose from those skill ranks that will give you different things, and then you also get a couple of special abilities. So one of them is Turn the Other Cheek for this character. Any creature that's classified as a humanoid, including player ancestries, suffer a -20 base chance to strike you with attacks, because until you initiate violence towards them or their allies. So as long as you are still not attacking, then it makes it harder for them to actually hit you. Everybody also has a drawback inside of their profession as well. One that I really, really like, let's see if I can find this one really quick, is the I'm trying to remember the exact word they choose for it. So there we go. It is the prostitute. I wasn't sure if that was the term they used or not. So the prostitute actually has a special effect of Get Lucky that is one, all skill ranks you acquire in Charm actually modify it by 20 instead of 10, so anytime you spend a point to increase your Charm, you actually double it, which is nice. But also, when you perform acts of carnal knowledge with another, you both get lucky. The ability is called the Full Monty. You both get lucky, gaining 1 fortune point for personal use. So you literally get lucky, which I think is really, really funny. So there's all kinds of different professions. There's also advanced professions. And advanced professions you can only get when it gives the like crime boss, you have to possess at least 2 skill ranks in skullduggery in order to enter this expert profession. Then you can become a crime boss. And it gives you all kinds of other things. It's basically like a prestige class for 3rd edition D&D. So there's all kinds of advanced professions in here. Every single one of them also has its own piece of art, which is really nice. It gives you kind of a good idea of what you're looking for in your character. Again, you're only going to have to care about any of these as long as it's something that your character is going into. And as the game master, you don't have to care about it at all, which is how I treat all characters in D&D. I have no idea how any class works in D&D because I just DM it. I let the players worry about how their classes work. So the skills chapter, it works a lot like I know like 3rd edition D&D and all the D20 systems. I think 4th edition too had a whole section of all about the skills and what they meant and how they worked and everything, including giving the different types of difficulties. So you've got like your athletics, and it gives you the difficulties on those different things and how you're going to have to modify the rolls. Because anytime you make any roll, you're aiming for the target number of your character. So if your character has a 59 in a attribute, you're going to be making sure that you're trying to hit that number or lower. You never want to hit below or over. So then different ratings, like if something's trivial, it's plus 30. So if you have a 60 in it, if it's trivial, you actually have a 90% chance to succeed. So it's a matter of a lot of the game is figuring out how your character is going to do things so that you can try to make it a much more trivial test and things like that. So that the skills chapter is again something that you're going to look at every once in a while, but you're not going to need to use that regularly once you get into using the game. So it's another chapter here that's not necessarily an essential one that you'll regularly refer to. The reason why I'm doing this is to sort of show how much of the book it's all useful, but how much of the book is useful in your day-to-day campaign, which is not a lot of it, but at random points you will need to use these different chapters for different things. Trappings, I mentioned this in my review. The trappings are all of your money and equipment. And the one thing I like about it is that they actually make the coinage not make any sense, which is accurate to the Middle Ages and stuff like that. So like 240 brass pennies are equal to 1 gold crown, and 12 brass pennies are equal to 1 silver shilling, which I love because it doesn't make any sense why that works. I mean, it makes sense as far as like when you're looking at like the cost of things, like a brass is worth a certain amount equal to gold. But as far as trying to do the math when you're exchanging money, it's a headache, but it should be a headache for this time period that this is mimicking. So, and also, a peasant's never going to see a gold coin ever. It would be insane for them to see a gold coin. They would probably, an entire village could go bankrupt on a single, or not. Their economy would detonate on itself if they saw a single gold coin. So there's a lot of great things in Trappings. There's fantastic art throughout. It reminds me a lot of older D&D, where they have a whole page that would just show you all the different types of items. And there's a lot of ranged weapons, a lot of close combat weapons, and everything has its own abilities, special abilities. There's full rules for war machines. You could actually run a full siege with these rules. It would be long and difficult, but you definitely could run a full siege. In fact, I think in the game mastering section they do have rules for a siege. You know what? I'll put that in my review for this version to talk about that. Full rules for crafting, and then we get into combat. Combat is a longer chapter. There's a lot in it, but I did end up highlighting this. They do have a full page here that just shows you all the different things your character can do in combat, how many action points it takes, things like that. Putting somebody in a chokehold, disarming, basically all the different things that characters are always come up with. Can I choke this person out? Can I make a called shot? Things like that. The rules do cover all that, which is nice, and it's nice that they have a single place for this. In fact, this would be the good place, probably, to pull out your little bookmark and keep it there, because you're going to use that a lot. And then the rest of the chapter explains basically what all those different abilities are, and explains how you work your way through combat. But it's actually a pretty short chapter. It works exactly like the rest of the mechanics do as far as the percentile rolls go. It's just there's little nitty-gritty details. Healing is a huge pain in the ass. There's a whole section on that, as well as all the different diseases you can come down with, which is great, because at this time period, everybody's going to die of something. So, we have rules for fire and poisons and all of that. This is the whole hazards and healing chapter. Then they have all different kinds of different chemicals, including gunpowder, laudanum, smelling salts. Then we get into the Grimoire. Now, here in the Grimoire, this is where it actually begins, the whole book begins to look a lot more standard Warhammer fantasy, which Zweihander is based on initially. There is all the different winds of magic, and they have all the same winds of magic as Warhammer Fantasy, and kind of with the serial numbers filed off. But it's really good stuff, and especially because the old world no longer exists, it's good to have. So, and I've always liked the winds of magic stuff. That was kind of one of my first exposures to magic and fantasy was Warhammer Fantasy. So they cover all the different types of gods that there are in the world, all different kinds of magic there. They explain. One thing I really like is it does have a whole section on true names. I love the concept of true names in fantasy, especially when you're looking at Wizard of Earthsea. I love the idea that if you know something's true name, you can bind it to you and control it in some way. So they do have a whole section on true naming and things like that, which is a fantastic source of a fantastic type of magic that I like. They have a whole section of all the different spells you can cast. Flip past that, and then just before they get to the big game mastering section, they have a large spread full color here, which I love. So the game mastery section is really, really large and extensive. It sort of talks about the feel of Zweihander, the low magic, low fantasy idea. What your role is as a game master. Talks about different descriptions you can give for different types of weapons and the way that they kill people. Piecemeal armor. Let's see. Different magical manifestations. Magic items, which is really good. They basically cover everything that you'd want as a game master. This is the section that you're going to want to spend a lot of time in as a game master, because that's going to give you all of the stuff you need to be able to run games and really give it that feel of grim and perilous fantasy. They have some alternate rules in here for like advancement and stuff like that. Let's see here. Still going through the Game Mastery chapter is, I think, the biggest chapter in the book. Maybe Professions is probably a little bit longer, but the Game Mastery section is pretty big. Then you have the Bestiary, and the Bestiary covers all the different types of creatures you're going to encounter, and it has them separated by the type of monster. So it's not alphabetical. You're actually going to be looking among like aberrational creatures and more common creatures, and again, it goes back into true naming, specifically with demons, because if you know the true name of a demon, you can bind it to you, which I like. The animal section is all the different types of normal animals that you're going to see in the medieval world. And then you get into the beasts. We have basilisks and bog behemoths and chimeras and things like that. Let's see, humanoids, all the different types of non-human but humanoids like lizard people and stuff like that. Then corrupted zealots, ogre mercenaries. This is where you get into the actual humans. So this section of the animals are where you're going to find most of your natural world, real world stuff is where you're going to focus on that. And then they have mutants and goblins and kobolds and all different kinds of terrible monsters. The nice thing is there's a lot of creatures in here, so it's not going to be as big as the monster manual for D&D, but there's more than enough creatures for you to use in your own games. And then, once we get past that, that's when we get into Bitter Harvest, which is the adventure. So it's a pretty small adventure. As far as adventures go, it has an actual historical background to it. The Baltic Crusades. They have a little sidebar that explains that, and it's a good adventure. I believe I talked about it in the digital review. If I didn't, I'll talk about it in the upcoming review. But it's a nice adventure there. And then we've got the appendices. So the appendices here are they cover the chase scene tracker and damage condition tracker, basically the stuff you're going to keep up behind your screen. All different kinds of complications for a chase, which is nice. You can flip to this chase scene section, run an entire chase out of here, because they cover all the different complications and based on location. So a mountain pass, a marketplace, the Undercity, a decrepit manor, all different kinds of stuff. Then they have wilderness tracker, and then inside of there they have the different random encounters that can happen inside the wilderness, and not only that, but which type of wilderness. So badlands, haunted woods, a moor, an old road, river, things like that. Then they have social intrigue, and a tracker with that for figuring out characters' social classes and stuff like that, which is of course always important when you're dealing with political things and stuff like that. Then they have an entire huge table of the taint of chaos and what chaos can end up doing to you. Then there's tables for all the different types of actions, and then they have your character sheets. And finally, they have from page 666 to 669 the entire index. So that gives you all the stuff you're going to be able to find. I haven't been able to not find something that I'm looking for in the index. It's pretty extensive. It covers basically everything. I know that were I running a campaign, I would definitely go through and highlight this. Like for example, when I said I was going to be, I'm considering doing a 100 Years War campaign. If I did, then I would go through and highlight basically everything in here that's going to apply to a historical game, not necessarily a fantastical game. So it is a fantastic book. It is massive. It's definitely worth picking up. Like I said, like this thing normally goes for $65, which for a complete role-playing game is half the price of what you're going to be paying for three $50 books for D&D. and this has all of the same content as you're going to find in there. It's a really great system. It's really simple as far as, game systems go. Don't let this fool you. It's a lot simpler than that. It's a good system, and I'm going to be writing that review probably in the next week or so and getting that up, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.